The parking lot erupted with a piercing scream that made every head turn. "Get away from her! Someone call the police! This man is stalking my daughter!" Marcus Williams froze, his leather messenger bag slipping from his shoulder. 20 feet ahead, 15-year-old Emma Bradford stood by the library entrance, her face draining of color. Between them, her mother, Catherine Bradford, positioned herself like a barrier. Phone in hand, finger hovering over 911. "Ma'am, I'm her tutor," Marcus said, forcing calm into his voice despite his racing heart. 32 years as a black man in America had taught him exactly how this could end. "I'm Marcus Williams. The school assigned me. I don't care what you say you are." Catherine's voice climbed higher. "I've seen you following her for weeks. Emma, get in the car, now!" Emma's eyes darted between them, horror and embarrassment on her face. "Mom, he's telling the truth. He's my calculus tutor. Don't defend him!" Catherine snapped. "You don't understand what men like this?" Marcus felt the familiar calculation every black man learned. Hands visible, voice steady. "Don't make sudden movements." The security guard was approaching, hand near his radio. "Mrs. Bradford, I have the assignment letter from Riverside Academy." Marcus tried again, slowly reaching into his bag. "Your daughter has been struggling with advanced calculus. Stop reaching in that bag." Someone shouted from the crowd. Marcus's hand stopped instantly. His master's degree meant nothing now. His 5 years of teaching experience, his wall of thank you letters, none of it mattered. What mattered was his brown skin and a white woman's fear. The security guard arrived. "What's going on here?" Catherine unleashed her narrative first. "This man has been stalking my daughter. I've seen him at the school, at the library. I want him arrested." Marcus had been here before, 6 months earlier at a coffee shop. Before that, outside a school where he taught. Each time, the assumption of criminality before proof of innocence. "I'm a tutor with Riverside Academy's after-school program," Marcus explained carefully. "Emma Bradford is my assigned student. We have sessions 3 times a week at the public library. Today is Wednesday, our scheduled session." Emma found her voice stronger. "Mom, I told you about Mr. Williams 2 weeks ago. You signed the consent form." Catherine's certainty wavered. "I never signed anything about some man." "You did, Mom. It's in your email." The school sent it twice. The guard examined Marcus's credentials, his ID, the official letter, his teaching license. Each movement Marcus made was deliberate, non-threatening. His father had taught him this choreography. His grandfather before that. "These look legitimate," the guard finally said. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding." But Catherine wasn't ready to let go. "I want to call the school. How do I know these aren't forged?" Marcus felt exhaustion settle into his bones. "Call the school." "I'll wait." He wouldn't run. Running looked like guilt. He stood there while a white woman verified a black man's right to do his job. Emma pulled out her phone, hands shaking. "I have Mr. Williams in the school portal. I have our session schedule, our emails, Mom, please. He's the best teacher I've ever had." Catherine finally lowered her phone, scrolling frantically. The parking lot audience began dispersing. Marcus wondered how many had been ready to see him arrested, thrown down, maybe worse. Catherine found the emails. Horror crossed her face. "I was just protecting my daughter. Any mother wouldn't have immediately assumed a black man near her daughter was a criminal," Marcus said, his voice calm but edged with truth. "That's not maternal instinct, Mrs. Bradford. That's something else." Emma looked at her mother with new eyes. The security guard shifted uncomfortably. Catherine Bradford stood there, her justification crumbling. "The tutoring session," Emma said quietly. "Should we still—" Marcus looked at this girl who'd done nothing wrong except have a mother who saw his skin before his credentials. "Yes, we still have derivatives to cover. That test is next week." He walked past Catherine, past the guard, toward the library. Emma fell into step beside him. "Mr. Williams, I'm so sorry. I told her about you." "I know. It's not your fault, Emma." But as they entered the library, Marcus wondered, what if the papers weren't in order? If the guard had called police first? If Emma hadn't spoken up? He'd promised himself he wouldn't quit, wouldn't let the assumptions drive him from teaching. He loved these kids, loved seeing math click for them, but God, he was tired. Hello, the Shade of Love family. This story is different. It's powerful, it's raw, and it's real. We're diving into a journey from prejudice to understanding that I hope will open hearts and minds. Before we continue, I want to know, where are you watching from, and have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination? You don't have to share details, but let me know if this resonates. This story is for everyone who believes change is possible. Let's aim for 100 comments. Your voices matter. Hit that like button if you're ready for this important journey. Marcus called his father that evening. It happened again. His father's sigh carried decades of understanding. Tell me. After hearing the story, his father asked the familiar questions. Did you keep your hands visible? Did you stay calm? Did you survive it? Yes, sir, to all three. Then you did what you needed to do. Pride and pain mingled in his father's voice. Your grandfather faced the same. White colleagues assumed he was a janitor. Students questioned his credentials, but he showed up every day and changed minds. One classroom at a time. I'm tired of changing minds. I just want to teach math. I know, son. God, I know. His phone buzzed. An email from Dr. Helen Morrison, Riverside's director. Catherine Bradford has called to apologize and requested tutoring continue. Please let me know your comfort level. We fully support whatever decision you make. Then his phone rang. An unknown number. Emma's hesitant voice. Mr. Williams? I hope calling is okay. What my mom did was wrong. Really, really wrong. You're the best teacher I've ever had. And she treated you like a criminal. Emma was crying. I'm so ashamed. Emma, listen. You did everything right today. You spoke up. You told the truth. That took courage. But it shouldn't have happened at all. You shouldn't have to prove you're not dangerous just for doing your job. No, I shouldn't. But that's the world we live in. People like you. People who speak up, who recognize injustice. You're the ones who change it. Will you keep being my tutor? I understand if you don't want to, but I don't want that parking lot to be the end of the story. Marcus looked at photos of the Williams men who'd come before him. Men who'd shown up in hostile spaces anyway. I'll keep being your tutor. But Emma, we need to be able to talk honestly. What happened today wasn't just your mother being overprotective. It was racism. I want to understand. I want to be better than what I saw today. After hanging up, Marcus wondered what he'd committed to. But he'd heard genuine desire to grow in Emma's voice. Maybe his father was right. One student at a time was how change happened. Monday morning brought the inevitable email. Meeting requested today at 3 p.m. at Riverside. Marcus moved through hallways with practiced awareness. He kept distance from students. Never touched anyone, always had witnesses nearby. These were survival tactics. Principal Davis sat at the conference table with Dr. Morrison. Marcus, we completely support you. What happened was unfortunate, but we understand Mrs. Bradford made a mistake. Unfortunate. Marcus filed away the euphemism. However, Davis continued, we need to discuss protocols moving forward. For everyone's protection. Whose protection? Marcus asked quietly. Everyone's. Yours. The students. The parents. Principal Davis, Dr. Morrison interjected. Perhaps we should be clear. Marcus followed every protocol. Mrs. Bradford made assumptions based on his race. Marcus finished. Let's say it plainly. Davis shifted uncomfortably. I don't think we need to make this about what? About race? That's exactly what it's about. In 5 years, how many times have I been pulled aside because of parent concerns? 7 times. How many times has David Chen had similar meetings? Or any white male teacher? Those situations were different. How? Explain how they were different. Dr. Morrison placed a hand on the table. They were different because Marcus is being subjected to additional scrutiny because of his race. We all know it. The question is what we're going to do about it. Davis suggested Marcus conduct tutoring in the building with another staff member present. Precautionary measures. Precautions against what? Marcus's voice remained calm, but his heart raced. I've never had a complaint about my conduct. The only complaints are about my presence, my existence near their children. Marcus, Morrison said gently, I understand your frustration, but we have to navigate parental concerns. Regardless of how misguided, no, we don't. If we change protocols because Catherine Bradford panicked over a black man doing his job, we validate every racist assumption. We tell students the world accepts discrimination as safety. Davis stood. We have to think about the school's reputation, our relationships with families, and liability. By making me adapt, by making me smaller, more monitored, by turning me into something that needs oversight. I need you to think carefully about what you're refusing to do, Davis said. A subtle threat. I have thought carefully, my entire career, my entire life, and I'm done shrinking to fit into spaces that should be mine by right. I will conduct sessions exactly as I always have, professionally, appropriately, without additional surveillance. If that's not acceptable, let's have a different conversation about what this school actually values. Marcus left knowing he'd drawn a line in the sand. And lines in the sand were dangerous for black men. Catherine Bradford couldn't stop thinking about the parking lot. Tuesday afternoon, she found Emma at her desk, tears streaming silently. "Honey, what's wrong?" Emma looked up, pain in her eyes. "I can't stop thinking about what you did to Mr. Williams." "Emma," I apologized. "You accused him of stalking me. In front of everyone. Do you know what could have happened? I was protecting you. Any mother would have..." "Stop saying that!" "If Mr. Williams were white, would you have screamed? Would you have assumed danger?" The question hung like an accusation, because they both knew the answer. "It's not about race," Catherine insisted weakly. "You've seen me with my old tutor at the library. You never panicked then. What was different about Mr. Williams, Mom?" Catherine opened her mouth, then closed it. The truth crystallized. She'd seen a black man near her daughter and assumed the worst. "I don't know," Catherine whispered. "Yes, you do. You just don't want to say it." Catherine sank onto Emma's bed. She thought about her upbringing. Parents who'd never said explicitly racist things but clutched purses tighter around black people, warned about those neighborhoods, went quiet when she dated a Latino man in college. "Mr. Williams has been teaching me for 2 weeks," Emma said. "He's patient and kind and brilliant. He made me believe I was smart. And you treated him like a criminal without asking a single question." Catherine's throat tightened. "I need to apologize to him. A real apology. In person." Emma studied her mother. "Do you even understand what you need to apologize for? For assuming he was dangerous. For screaming, for being racist." "That's what it was, Mom. You need to say the word." Catherine flinched. Racism was for other people, explicit bigots, not liberal white women who voted correctly. "I'm not racist." "Then what do you call what you did?" Catherine wanted to argue, to explain she'd just been scared. But under her daughter's steady gaze, those explanations dissolved. "I don't know what to call it, but I know it was wrong." "I know I hurt someone who didn't deserve it because of his skin color," Emma pressed. "Yes," Catherine finally admitted, "because of his skin color." That night, Catherine researched what she'd never thought she needed to understand. She read about racial profiling, about weaponizing white women's tears, about black men lynched based on white women's accusations. She read about Emmett Till, the Central Park Five, countless lives destroyed because white women pointed and said, "Threat." By 3 a.m., Catherine was crying in her bathroom, reading histories she'd never learned. She'd always known racism existed, of course, but she'd thought it was something other people did, something historical, easily identified. She'd never considered she might be part of the problem. Emma showed her Marcus's text the next day. "I'm willing to meet. Tomorrow, 4 p.m., library conference room. You should be present too." The library conference room felt too small. Marcus arrived exactly at 4 p.m., composed and guarded. "Mr. Williams, thank you for agreeing to meet." Catherine's prepared speech evaporated. Marcus sat across from her, Emma between them. The silence stretched. "I want to apologize," Catherine began, voice shaking, "for what I did. For screaming, for accusing you, for trying to call police, for not asking questions before assuming the worst. I was wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong." Marcus listened, his expression unreadable. "I've realized it was because you're black. If you'd been white, I wouldn't have assumed danger. I wouldn't have seen you as a threat. And that makes me racist." The word felt heavy. "I don't want to be. I don't want Emma growing up with a mother who makes those assumptions. So I'm apologizing, but I'm also asking if you'd help me understand. Help me do better." Marcus sat back. When he spoke, his voice was measured and tired. "Mrs. Bradford, I appreciate your apology. But you need to understand, what happened wasn't just a mistake. It was me being in danger." Catherine started to protest, but Marcus raised a hand. "You called for police. You told security I was stalking your daughter. Do you know what happens to black men when police are called? I could have been arrested, beaten, or killed based on your accusation alone." Catherine felt blood drain from her face. "I've been a teacher for 5 years with a master's degree. I've taught hundreds of students with 0 conduct complaints. But in 5 years, I've had 7 incidents where parents assumed I was dangerous simply because I existed near their children." He leaned forward, exhaustion visible. "So when you ask me to help you understand, to educate you about racism, you're asking me to perform emotional labor around trauma I already navigate every day. You're asking me to make you comfortable with harm you caused me. Catherine felt shame wash over her. I'm sorry. You're right. I shouldn't have asked that. It's not your job to educate me. It's my job to educate myself. Marcus studied her. The fact that you recognize that is something most white people never get there. Emma spoke quietly. Mr. Williams, would you continue being my tutor? Not because my mom deserves it, but because I want to learn from you. Marcus looked at Emma with softness. You were brave that day. You spoke truth even when it meant contradicting your mother. That took courage. It shouldn't have taken courage. It should have been automatic. Marcus nodded slowly. Those realizations are the beginning of real change. Yes, I'll continue being your tutor. Because you're brilliant and sincere about wanting to grow. He turned back to Catherine. As for you, I accept your apology. But acceptance doesn't mean everything's fine. What you do with that recognition is up to you. What should I do? Catherine asked, then immediately regretted it. Marcus surprised her by answering. Read, research. Listen to black voices, not to argue, but to understand. When you see racism, name it. When you have racist thoughts, interrogate them. Use your privilege to challenge other white people. And don't expect black people to thank you for treating us like humans. Catherine nodded, absorbing every word. Marcus stood to leave. Mrs. Bradford, one more thing. When you tell this story, and you will, don't make yourself the hero. Emma is the hero who spoke truth. You're just someone who got caught participating in a racist system and decided to stop. We're halfway through this transformation, and I can feel your emotions in the comments. Quick question. Have you ever had to confront your own privilege or biases? It's uncomfortable but necessary. What's your prediction for what happens next? Some of you have incredible insights. If this story is making you think differently, smash that like button and subscribe. We're building a community of people who believe in justice, growth, and real change. Can we hit 150 comments? Let's show that these stories matter. Monday, Emma aced her calculus test. That afternoon in the library, she overheard administrators talking. The Bradford incident is bad enough, but if parents find out about the history... What history? Marcus Williams' grandfather, Dr. James Williams, he was involved in that integration lawsuit back in the 60s. The case that forced Riverside to accept black students. Emma pulled out her phone, searching. Dr. James Williams. Integration lawsuit Riverside. Articles from 1968-1972 flooded her screen. Dr. James. Williams had sued Riverside Preparatory Academy for refusing to admit his son based on race. He won, forcing integration. But the articles detailed backlash. Death threats, vandalism, his son experiencing severe harassment. The family eventually left the state for safety. 50 years later, Marcus was teaching at the institution his grandfather had sued. When Marcus arrived, Emma held up her phone. Why didn't you tell me? Marcus's smile faded. He sat slowly. How did you find out? Your grandfather sued this school. He fought to integrate it, and they treated your family terribly. Yes, my grandfather was a civil rights activist who challenged educational segregation. The lawsuit succeeded legally but destroyed our family in other ways. Your father attended here? For 1 year. He was 12 and he faced hell. Students who spat on him. Teachers who graded unfairly. Parents who protested his presence. After a year, my grandparents moved away. My father didn't return here for 30 years. Then why are you here? Why teach at the school that hurt your family? Marcus looked at her with ancient eyes. Because my grandfather taught me you don't let bigots win by avoiding spaces they tried to keep you from. You walk into those spaces, claim them, transform them. Riverside isn't the same as 1968. It's integrated now. But it still carries that history and someone needs to remember while teaching here. Does administration know? Of course. It's public record. Some board members were probably around when it happened. But we pretend it's ancient history. Until something like what your mother did happens, and everyone remembers what they'd prefer to forget. Emma felt sick. If I had known, would it have changed anything? Would your mother have screamed less loudly? Marcus shook his head. Emma, this history is why what happened hurt so much. It wasn't just one incident. It was a continuation of a pattern that started before I was born. Your family fought so hard for equality, and 50 years later my mom saw you as a criminal. That's not progress. No, but progress isn't linear. We take steps forward and get pushed back. My grandfather knew that. My father knew that. And I know it too. Emma opened her laptop, crying. I want to write about this. For the school newspaper. About the integration lawsuit, your grandfather's bravery, how the school needs to acknowledge its racist history. Emma, think carefully. Publishing could have consequences. For you, for me, for the school. Are you ready? I don't care about consequences. This story needs to be told. Students should know they're walking through halls black students fought to access. Marcus studied her, then nodded. Okay, do it right. Interview my father. He's willing to talk now. Research court documents. Find other families involved. Tell the complete story. Will you help me? Yes, but understand, once you publish, you can't unpublish it. You'll be treated differently. Some will praise you. Many will dismiss you. You'll lose friends. Are you ready? Emma thought about her mother's transformation, the cost of standing up. I'm ready, because if I stay silent, I'm complicit. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Emma interviewed Marcus's father, who shared heartbreaking stories of being 12 and cornered in bathrooms by white students, of teachers who tokenized him, of parents who petitioned to remove him from classes. She interviewed Dr. Helen Morrison, who revealed the school had never formally apologized, never acknowledged harm to the Williams family. She interviewed her mother, recording Catherine's full confession, raw, painful acknowledgement of racism and privilege. Emma's article was 15 pages. The Legacy We Inherit, Riverside Academy's Racist History and the Cost of Forgetting. Monday morning, she was called to Principal Davis's office. Marcus and Catherine insisted on accompanying her. Emma, this article is problematic, Davis began. It paints the school in a very negative light. It brings up painful history many would prefer to leave in the past. It's factual. Everything is documented and verified. I'm questioning your judgment. This creates division, upsets parents, potentially impacts enrollment. We're already in an uncomfortable position, Catherine interjected. The video of what I did is everywhere. Emma's article doesn't create discomfort, it contextualizes it. Davis turned to Marcus. Surely you can see how this could create problems? It dredges up your family's painful history. The question isn't whether Emma's article is comfortable. The question is whether it's true. And it is. But what purpose does it serve? We gain honesty, Emma said firmly. The opportunity to acknowledge harm, apologize, commit to doing better. To teach students the full history. I can't let you publish this. It's too divisive, too risky for the school's reputation. Then you're proving my point. You're choosing reputation over truth. Comfort over justice, protecting an institution that harmed black families rather than acknowledging that harm. I'm protecting this school community. Good. Let it create division. Let parents be upset. Let them confront that their children attend a school black families had to sue to access. Let them be uncomfortable, Catherine spoke up. Eleanor, I would have been upset 2 weeks ago. I would have dismissed this as too political. But I've learned discomfort is necessary for growth. This school needs to grow. Marcus leaned forward. You don't understand what it's like to teach in a school your grandfather had to sue to attend. If you censor Emma's article, you're sending a clear message. This school values reputation over truth, comfort over justice, and white parents' feelings over black people's humanity. After 2 hours of debate, Davis relented. What if we publish a shortened version and include a school statement? No, Emma said immediately. That's sanitization. The truth isn't inflammatory, it's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable truths deserve to be told in full. Catherine placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. Principal Davis, you can censor Emma's article, which leads to her publishing elsewhere. That becomes a story about Riverside silencing student journalists exposing racism. Or you publish it, demonstrate courage, and use it for genuine dialogue. Which serves the school better? Davis recognized defeat. I need to consult with the board. You have until Friday, Emma said. If the school newspaper won't publish it, I'll take it to the local press. The truth is coming out either way. After leaving, Marcus turned to Emma. You know what you've done? You've made yourself a target. You've been a target your whole life just for existing while black. If standing up for truth makes me a target, that's a consequence I'm willing to accept. Marcus smiled warmly. Your grandfather would have liked you. Emma. Dr. Williams always said change would come from young people who refuse to accept injustice as normal. The article published Monday morning and went viral by evening. Headlines multiplied. So did the backlash. Emma's social media erupted, supportive and hostile. She was called race traitor, white savior, attention seeker. Parents flooded the board with complaints and demands. Marcus faced his own storm. Some demanded he be fired. Others defended him fiercely. Catherine became an unlikely symbol, proof white people could confront racism, but also a target for those who saw her confession as betrayal. Wednesday's panel discussion packed the auditorium. Marcus, Emma, Dr. Morrison, Principal Davis, and 2 students of color sat on stage. The room was electric. Davis opened with the official apology to the Williams family, committing to anti-racist education and reform. More than Emma expected, less than needed. But a start? Then came public comments. A white parent stood, angry. "My children don't need to be taught they're racist. This creates division where there was none." Marcus leaned to his microphone. "Ma'am, the division was already there. Your children weren't aware because they benefited from it." A black mother stood, tears streaming. "My son comes home exhausted every day from being the black perspective, from having white students touch his hair." This article finally gave voice to what we've been saying. "Thank you." A white senior stood, voice shaking. "I've attended Riverside since kindergarten. I never knew about the integration lawsuit. Why weren't we taught our school's history? Why did we learn from a student newspaper?" Then Catherine stood. The room fell silent. "My name is Catherine Bradford. Many of you know me. 3 weeks ago, I accused Mr. Williams of stalking my daughter." I screamed. "I threatened to call police. I assumed a black man near my white daughter was a criminal." Absolute silence. "I need you to understand something. I consider myself a good person. I vote progressive. I donated to diversity initiatives. I posted Black Lives Matter. And yet, when confronted with a black man near my daughter, all that supposed progressiveness disappeared. Some parents looked uncomfortable. Others nodded. Emma's article isn't creating division. It's exposing division that's always existed. It's making visible what black families have always known, that this school was built on racism, and that racism continues until we actively dismantle it. I'm challenging other white parents. What assumptions are you making? What privileges are you protecting? What racism are you ignoring because acknowledging it would be uncomfortable?" She sat to scattered applause and hostile stares. After the event, Marcus stepped in when reporters surrounded Emma. "Emma's a 15-year-old student who did brave work, but she's not the hero. My grandfather, Dr. James Williams, who sued this school in 1968, he's the hero. My father, who endured hell as a 12-year-old integrating this school, he's the hero. The black students who contributed their stories, they're the heroes. Emma is an ally and a good one, but let's be clear whose story this actually is." That evening, they finally had dinner at Catherine's home. Marcus, Catherine, and Emma. Richard was staying at his brother's, the marriage crumbling under the weight of Catherine's growth, over simple food. Marcus asked, "Catherine, when you screamed in that parking lot, what were you actually afraid of?" Catherine set down her fork. "Honestly, I was afraid of you harming Emma, but when I interrogate that fear, really interrogate it, I had no rational basis. You hadn't approached inappropriately. You hadn't done anything threatening. The only trigger was your blackness near my daughter's whiteness. That fear was trained into me, by movies portraying black men as criminals, by news coverage, by a society that teaches white women to fear black men. And now? Now I see you, a brilliant educator, a patient teacher, a man carrying generations of racism with extraordinary grace. Now I see my fear for what it was. Racist conditioning I never examined." Emma spoke up. "Mr. Williams, Robert, do you think your father would be proud of what's happening here?" Robert considered seriously. "My father was a dreamer and a fighter. He dreamed of a world where black children could access quality education without fear. Would he be proud? Yes. But he'd also remind us the work isn't finished. That one ceremony doesn't erase centuries of oppression. That real change requires vigilance, commitment, and ongoing effort." "Then we'll keep working," Catherine said. "For as long as it takes." Marcus looked at this unlikely group. His father, who'd survived integration's cruelty, Emma, who'd used her privilege for justice, and Catherine, who'd confronted her own racism and felt something he hadn't allowed himself in years. Hope. Not naive hope that ignored ongoing racism. Not comfortable hope that let white people feel absolved, but grounded hope that recognized the difficulty while committing anyway. You know what my grandfather used to say? Justice is not a destination. It's a direction. And every step toward justice, no matter how small, matters. That's what today was. A step. Not the end of the journey, but a meaningful step in the right direction. They stood together. These 4 people whose lives had collided painfully and transformed beautifully, and they made a silent commitment to keep stepping, keep working, keep fighting for the justice Dr. James Williams had dreamed of, outside The sun was setting over Riverside Academy, casting long shadows across a campus built on exclusion but slowly, painfully, learning to embrace inclusion. The work was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, it felt possible. 6 weeks later, the school board announced a comprehensive equity review and hired Dr. Morrison as Director of Equity and Inclusion. They invited the Williams family to a formal reconciliation ceremony. Marcus's father, Robert Williams, returned to Riverside Academy for the first time in 53 years. Saturday morning, the auditorium filled with somber, hopeful energy. Robert stood at the podium, a 70-year-old man who'd been a 12-year-old boy the last time he'd walked these halls. "I left this school in 1969, he began, voice strong despite emotion. "I left because the daily harassment, the constant cruelty, the message that I didn't belong, it was too much for a child to bear. My father believed education was the path to equality. In some ways, he was right. But the cost was higher than any of us anticipated." The auditorium was silent. I carried anger for years, but mostly sadness. Sadness that my father's dream of equality felt so far away, that his brilliance, his courage, his sacrifice, it wasn't enough to change hearts. "It could change laws, but not hearts," he paused. Then 30 years after I left, my son told me he wanted to teach here. I tried to talk him out of it, but Marcus said, "Dad, Grandpa taught us to claim spaces that tried to exclude us. This school tried to keep you out, but now they need me. That's progress." "Imperfect, but progress." Robert's eyes found Marcus. "My son has taught here 5 years. He's faced his own battles, assumptions, suspicions, the weight of being one of the few black educators. But he's also touched hundreds of lives, opened minds, planted seeds of change." His gaze shifted to Emma and Catherine. 3 weeks ago, something happened that could have been another tragedy. A white woman saw my son and assumed danger. But this time, something different happened. That woman's daughter spoke truth. That woman chose to confront her own racism rather than deny it. Together, they turned a moment of harm into a catalyst for change. Catherine was crying openly. "So today, I'm not just here to receive an apology for 53 years ago, though I appreciate that acknowledgement. I'm here to witness something my father didn't live to see, a generation of young people, black and white and every shade between, choosing to do the hard work of dismantling racism together. That's the legacy my father wanted, and maybe, finally, we're starting to honor it." The audience stood in sustained, genuine applause. Principal Davis formally apologized, reading a statement that acknowledged specific harms and committed to specific changes. Then Dr. Morrison announced the Dr. James Williams Scholarship Fund, a full-ride scholarship for students of color pursuing mathematics or science education. Marcus felt tears finally fall. His grandfather's name, once associated with controversy, was now being honored. His grandfather's fight was being memorialized in living support for the next generation. After the ceremony, Emma stood to the side, understanding this moment wasn't about her. But Marcus found her and pulled her over. "Emma, meet Mrs. Dorothy Jackson. She was one of the first black students after my father left. She integrated the school in 1971 and stayed all 4 years. Mrs. Jackson took Emma's hands. "Child, I read your article. You told the truth, but I want you to understand. You're part of a long line of people who fought for justice at this school. You didn't start this fight, and it won't end with you. The question is whether you're ready to keep fighting when it's not exciting anymore, when the cameras are gone, when it's just hard, daily work. I am. I'm committed for the long haul." Mrs. Jackson smiled. "Good, because that's what this work requires. Not heroic moments, but steady, persistent effort." Catherine approached nervously. "Mrs. Jackson, I'm Catherine Bradford. I was the woman who, I know who you are. Confronting your own racism is important, but it's just the beginning. The real test is what you do next, when the spotlight fades and you're just making daily choices about how to use your privilege. That's when we'll see if this transformation is real. I understand. And I'm prepared for that work. We'll see," Mrs. Jackson said. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "But I have hope. Because you're here. Because you brought your daughter. Because you didn't hide from consequences. That means something." The afternoon stretched into evening. The Coalition for Racial Justice unveiled their action plan, detailed, ambitious, holding the school accountable. As the crowd thinned, Marcus, Robert, Emma, and Catherine found themselves alone in the auditorium. "Dad, thank you for coming back." Robert smiled, tears in his eyes. Son, I came back 53 years ago as a frightened child who left broken. Today, I came back as a proud father watching his son honored in the place that once rejected our family. That's not just progress. That's transformation. Emma spoke up. Hello, the Shade of Love family. This journey from prejudice to unity has been incredible, and your comments show me you're really feeling it. What's been the most powerful moment for you? Let me know. If this story has opened your eyes or heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Together we can create understanding. Hit that like button and keep this movement growing. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his new university office, unpacking books for his position training the next generation of educators. On his desk sat a framed photo from his last day at Riverside. Him surrounded by the Coalition for Racial Justice, Emma front and center, all grinning with hard-won joy. His phone buzzed. Aced my calculus final. Getting an A. Still miss you as a teacher, but love following your work. How's the first week? Emma, he smiled and typed, challenging and exciting. Teaching teachers might be harder than teaching students, but it's good work. Proud of you, Emma. Keep using your voice. Her response, always. Mom says hi. She's speaking at 3 schools this month about white parents confronting racism. Wild to think this started in a parking lot 6 months ago. Marcus reflected on that. 6 months. In some ways, a lifetime ago. In others, painfully fresh. Catherine's scream, the guard's suspicion, the exhaustion of proving innocence. But what had grown from that ugly moment was extraordinary. Riverside had implemented mandatory anti-racist training. They'd revised curriculum to include authentic Black history. They'd hired 3 new Black teachers. The coalition was thriving. Beyond Riverside, the ripples continued. Catherine's organization had launched in 5 other states. Emma's journalism had inspired other student activists. Marcus's position meant training hundreds of teachers. None of it was perfect. Racism didn't disappear because of one article or ceremony. But the work was happening. The conversation was ongoing. The commitment was real. Professor Chen appeared at his door. Marcus, ready for your first class? The student teachers are eager to meet you. Marcus grabbed his syllabus and followed her. As he entered the classroom, 25 future teachers looked up. Diverse faces, eager expressions, notebooks open. Good morning. I'm Marcus Williams, and I'm here to teach you about culturally responsive mathematics education. But before we talk about teaching strategies, I want to tell you a story about my grandfather. He pulled up a photo of Dr. James Williams on the projector. Dignified, determined, standing on courthouse steps in 1968. This is Dr. James Williams. He was a mathematics professor and civil rights activist. In 1968, he sued a preparatory academy for refusing to admit his son based on race. He won, but the victory came with a cost: death threats, vandalism, his son's suffering. But he never regretted it, because he believed education was the path to liberation. Next slide. His father as a 12-year-old, looking scared but brave. This is my father, Robert Williams. He integrated that school. He endured a year of hell so future Black students could access quality education. He carried trauma for decades. But he also carried pride, because he survived, and his survival meant something. Next slide. Marcus himself at Riverside. And this is me. 5 years ago, I started teaching at the school my grandfather sued and my father integrated. I thought I was there to prove something. But what I learned is that teaching is about recognizing the full humanity of every student. About understanding that racism shapes educational experiences. About creating classrooms where all students can thrive. Final slide, his last day surrounded by students. This is why I'm here teaching you. Because the teachers you become will either perpetuate educational inequity or challenge it. My job is to prepare you to be teachers who transform lives and institutions. A young white woman raised her hand nervously. Professor Williams, I want to be that kind of teacher. But I'm afraid I'll mess up, say the wrong thing, cause harm. How do I deal with that fear? Marcus smiled, recognizing genuine desire. That fear is actually a good sign. It means you're taking this seriously. But here's what I want you to understand. You will mess up. The question isn't whether you'll cause harm, but what you'll do when you do. Will you get defensive? Center your comfort? Or will you listen, learn, apologize, and grow? A Black man spoke up. Professor, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm exhausted already. I'm tired of educating white people about racism. How do I sustain this work without burning out? Marcus nodded, recognizing the exhaustion he'd felt countless times. That's real. And here's the truth. You don't have to educate white people about racism unless you choose to. That's not your job as a black teacher. Your job is to teach your content well, to support your students, to be excellent. If you choose anti-racist education work, that's your choice. But you're not obligated to carry that burden alone. He looked at his white students. And for those of you who are white, it's your job to educate yourselves and each other about racism. Black teachers shouldn't have to do that labor for you. Read, research, listen, challenge your white colleagues. That's how you share the burden. The class session continued, Marcus weaving together pedagogy and justice, mathematics and equity. When it ended, several students lingered with questions, gratitude, stories. This was his new normal, not teaching calculus to teenagers, but training teachers. Not fighting battles at one school, but equipping hundreds of educators for hundreds of schools. That evening, he video called his father. "Dad, I taught my first class today. How was it?" Robert's face beamed with pride. "Hard, good, important. I told them about Grandpa. About you. About Riverside. Good. Those stories need to be told. The next generation needs to understand the history they're inheriting and the responsibility they carry. Did you ever imagine we'd be here?" Robert was quiet for a long moment. "Your grandfather always said change was generational, that the work we did might not bear fruit in our lifetimes, but it would eventually. I think he'd be amazed and proud, but I also think he'd remind us the work continues, that every generation has to fight for justice in new ways. I won't forget." After hanging up, Marcus checked his email. Emma had sent a video, her speaking at a youth conference about allyship, about using privilege for justice, about transformation. She was poised, articulate, passionate. She'd become the ally he'd hoped. Catherine had written, "Marcus, Richard, and I finalized our divorce this week. It's painful but freeing. I'm moving forward with clarity about who I am and who I want to be. Thank you for being part of that clarity. Attaching the curriculum I've developed for white parents. Would appreciate your feedback." He reviewed it. Thoughtful, avoiding common pitfalls of white fragility and virtue signaling. Catherine had done the work. Kept doing it when cameras were gone, when her marriage ended, when it cost her comfort. He replied, "Catherine, this is excellent work. You've created something valuable. Keep going." As Marcus prepared for bed, he thought about the journey from parking lot confrontation to this moment. The cost, exhaustion, emotional labor, constant navigation of racist assumptions. But also the growth, Emma's transformation, Catherine's journey, Riverside's shift. Most of all, he thought about his grandfather, about seeds planted decades ago finally blooming. Dr. James Williams had fought not knowing whether he'd win, whether his sacrifice would matter. But it had mattered. It was still mattering. And it would continue as Marcus trained teachers, as Emma used journalism, as Catherine challenged other white parents, as the coalition continued its work. The struggle wasn't over. Racism hadn't been defeated, but the direction was clear, toward justice, toward equity, toward a world where black educators like Marcus could simply teach without constantly proving their humanity. That night, Marcus slept deeply for the first time in months. In the morning, he'd wake to continue the work. He'd teach, challenge, inspire. He'd carry forward his grandfather's legacy not by finishing the fight, it would never be finished, but by fighting well, fighting wisely, fighting together with allies who'd earned that title through action, from a parking lot accusation to a movement for change, from prejudice to partnership, from one black man proving his innocence to a coalition demanding justice. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning, and Marcus Williams, grandson of a civil rights pioneer, son of an integration survivor, teacher of teachers and champion of justice, was ready for every chapter yet to come.